Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fantasy Gods. I'm Brett Chaves. As always, here with me, my main man, Ben Pope. Ben, we're back here for our spring debut episode here, and that comes some sad news. NFL it's coming to an end, man. Title games, as of this recording, are about to kick off, and we're just about to wrap things up on a wild ride in these next few weeks.
Yeah, it's been a great playoff slate so far, and hopefully the Super Bowl kind of lives up to the expectations as well, because we've honestly had some really great games in the playoffs. But talked enough about real football. Let's talk to the namesake of the show. Let's talk some fantasy football.
Yeah, and with that, some stars have obviously came, some have gone, but it's never too late to talk about the real stars that have shined in this fantasy season. So we'll start off with the first guy here, Davis Mills, quarterback from the Houston Texans. Now, I know this is a strange pick to start things off, considering Davis Mills came into the season, then got benched again, then started off the rest of the year. But just looking at the way the Texans' offense progressed at the end of the year, it's sort of shaping up to where Davis Mills could really be a long-term solution in Houston. If you just look at his stats from his last game against the Titans, over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He averaged just about 12 fantasy points per game. So if you're looking towards the back half of your draft and really want to take the risk here with Davis Mills, I would consider a few things. First off is who he has around him. The Texans need to draft or sign some guys to really have a support system around him. And two, if you're really that short for a quarterback, it's not that bad of an option. Looking at it as a whole, if Davis Mills can continue to put up 15 to 20 points per game, he should be a solid quarterback 2 option in many fantasy leagues.
Yeah, Mills probably an unknown for the majority of this season, but when we're looking ahead towards the 2022-2023 season, definitely a solid option. Houston, kind of a little bit of an uncertain area so far, but just stuff looking up for Davis Mills. He's likely going to have that quarterback job. So if you're in a deeper league, looks like he's going to be a solid quarterback in Brett's opinion.
Yes, sir.
So I'll go over to the running back side of things now, and I'm going to be talking about Rashad Penny, who's an upcoming free agent running back, currently plays for the Seattle Seahawks. A 25-year-old, he's a former first-round draft pick. Had a pretty solid season in wake of kind of relieving the injured Chris Carson for the Seahawks. Had just under 750 scrimmage yards for running, and he had a really solid end to the season, almost 150 rushing yards in 4 out of his last 5 games. If he moves on from Seattle and lands a starting running back job, that's honestly a really untapped potential, just because we haven't seen him on the field too much just because of his health. So that's a really big thing to look out for. But if he lands in a solid spot that could provide him some starts in the running back position, that could be a really great late-round pick for Rashad Penny.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Most people already wrote Rashad Penny out of the equation in Seattle, considering most thought that Chris Carson had the job. But if Rashad Penny obviously leaves Seattle, he could get a legitimate starting job. Miami Dolphins, for one, could be a team to watch out for in that situation. But we'll see what he does. Could be a potential 3-down back and a big fantasy score. Moving on to my next pick here. It's a strange one again, but there's a pretty untapped potential here, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. from the Los Angeles Rams. He's had some big seasons before in fantasy. He's also had some really low ones. But ever since he signed with the Rams back during the middle of the season, Odell Beckham really seemed to pick up his production, especially in the playoffs if you've been watching recently. Odell Beckham really seems to have formed a connection with Matt Stafford, and the two really look to form a pair going into 2022. Obviously, if he re-signs, he's an upcoming free agent. Just going back into some of his statistics, scored 5 TDs in the last 8 games with the Rams. So obviously Stafford loves him as a red zone threat. Just looking at it as a whole, Sean McVay's been known to use his guys to their best abilities and most potential. So there's no reason why Odell Beckham could potentially be another big fantasy scorer.
Yeah, I think it'd be very attractive if he's able to stay in Los Angeles. He's obviously had that success with Stafford, like you mentioned, and Sean McVay is a great coach. With wide receivers, sometimes you just want to follow who their quarterback is. And if they got a great quarterback who's able to throw the ball deep downfield like Matthew Stafford has been able to do this season with not only Odell Beckham Jr., but with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods when he's been healthy, there's always great stuff there. And OBJ's been great. He's honestly had some struggles in Cleveland, but he's bounced back with the Rams, like you mentioned.
Yep.
So we'll go to my last player here, and a little bit of a random pick here, but I'm going with rookie wide receiver, going to be second-round wide receiver, Joshua Palmer for the Chargers. So Mike Williams, who is the current number 2 wide receiver in LA, is an upcoming free agent. And Josh Palmer, coming off a little bit of a soft rookie season, 33 catches and just under 350 receiving yards. So nothing too crazy for the third rounder out of Tennessee. But Josh Palmer, target share was raising in the last 5 games. In 4 out of those 5, he had at least 5 targets. So started having a little bit more of a rapport with quarterback Justin Herbert. There's going to be a lot of untapped potential there with both Mike Williams and potentially Jared Cook, the tight end, leaving in free agency. There's going to be a lot of vacated targets, and that's something you always want to look out for, vacated targets and strong quarterbacks when it comes to late-round wide receivers. And I think, honestly, Joshua Palmer has a very great opportunity to have that number 2 wide receiver job in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I think you make an excellent point here. Obviously, the vacated targets is something that needs to be addressed in Los Angeles. Jared Cook and Mike Williams both expected to leave from the Chargers this offseason. That only leaves Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer. So you step them up to the number 2 role. There you go. Big fantasy score. Fantasy owners obviously saw how Mike Williams did this past season, especially right out of the gate for the Chargers. So that very well could be Josh Palmer heading into 2022.
For sure. And those were our sleepers for the upcoming 22-23 season for fantasy football. That does it here for us on Fantasy Gods. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the NFL playoffs. And, as always,
Keep calm, play fantasy.